Napoleon, remembered as the greatest military strategist of all time and the father of modern France. But what if I told you the strategic genius and hero of the French Revolution was a crippling addict and his drug of choice? Logistics. There is no doubt that Napoleon was a strategic genius. His battlefield antics have proven this. He had a renowned ability to see the battlefield through a different lens that most leaders never will. He also had an innate ability to rally his men and fully invest them into the task at hand. But Napoleon didn't win by outsmarting his generals or rallying his men. He won by outlasting supply systems. Napoleon knew that the key to strategic victories would be speed. Knowing how crucial a factor speed would play, Napoleon broke his armies into corps. Making groups smaller and self-sufficient would allow them to move at speeds thought to be impossible to European countries at the time. The only thing that could slow them down now was the drag of supply chains. To avoid the pain of waiting for mules and other pack animals to drag heavy supply chains to his men's fighting positions, Napoleon lived off the land, allowing for the supply chains to lighten the load of food and just carry munitions, greatly increasing their speed. All this was just theory though, and Napoleon needed a test. In 1976, Napoleon would be given command of the Army of Italy, a neglected, undersupplied force considered backwater assignment. Napoleon's only choice was to move fast and live off the land, or fail immediately. Napoleon split his army into corps and forced marches through poor roads. He fed his troops by taking supplies as they advanced and living off the land. Moving so much faster than his Austrian counterparts, he was able to attack them separately before they could coordinate. Napoleon would then continue, pushing eastward, making the Austrians sue for peace. What began as a survival tactic in Italy became a system that Napoleon would rely on for the rest of the Napoleonic Wars, until it failed. It would all fall apart, where it does for most European leaders, when Napoleon invaded Russia. After warring with Europe for years, the Russians had caught on to Napoleon's strategy and found a way to counter it. Napoleon's armies couldn't live off the land if there was no land to live on. So the Russians implemented the infamous scorched earth policy. This involved torching local resources as Russian forces retreated. Without being able to live off the land, Napoleon had to rely on slow, loaded down supply chains, taking away the biggest edge he had: speed. The Russian invasion would be a disaster for Napoleon. Out of the 600,000 men that entered Russia, fewer than 100,000 would return to France. Napoleon flew close to the sun when he invaded Russia, and it would lead to his demise. Napoleon wasn't undone by the brutal Russian winter, and he wasn't defeated by a single battle. He was defeated when the system that he built his entire empire on stopped working. Logistics made Napoleon unstoppable, but dependent. And as long as his armies could move fast and feed themselves, Europe couldn't keep up. In the end, the very thing that made him great is what destroyed him.